1969, Tafshin Haftes. The Rebbe tells us that for our generation, I think we spoke about it once, to keep Torah and mitzvahs, you have to be a bit of a Meshuga today. There's so much outside there that the fact that we are sitting today and just learning Torah, it's not only the Rebbe speaking about it, it's the Noam Elimelech speaks about it. And he says that towards the time when Mashiach will come, Am Yisrael are going to face such challenges. It's going to be so hard to keep Yiddishkeit. And he was probably referring also to the material challenges in the times of the Holocaust. But not only that, also the challenges that we go through today. And we take it for granted, the fact that we're sitting around the table and learning Torah. But this is not something that's normal, that's easy. We might think of it that we are doing something normal. But if you take a look at what's happening outside, there's so much nonsense going on outside, and you can belong to this movement and to that movement, and you can protest for this, and you can protest for that, and you could become that, and you become whatever you want. So to stay connected to Yiddishkeit, to come and daven, to put on tefillin, to keep Shabbos, yes, you've got to be a bit of a Meshuga. And that's a sign of the pride. You disagree with that? So that means that you are very solid in the Torah and mitzvahs. It became very natural. Sorry?
It makes the only way Lord.
Baruch Hashem. I think that increases the point very much. Because if you think about it from an objective point, sorry?
I think never in the history we had so many about truth.
Right. And 100%. And this is not to take for granted. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of discipline and a lot of self-connection to Hashem to reach this. It's not something easy. We sometimes like to dismiss our achievements. But this is what did the Noam Elimelech speak about? The Noam Elimelech says, and the Rebbe speaks about it also today, that the mission of the previous generations was much more conventional. To keep Torah and mitzvahs, to do a mitzvah for the sake of a mitzvah. Today, and especially if you go maybe to the younger generation, you see the young generation, there's so much out there for them that the last thing that they should take interest in is in Yiddishkeit and Torah and mitzvahs. But you see that they're still connected. So maybe I wouldn't come up with this idea out of my own accord. I don't think I would. But since the Noam Elimelech says it, since the Rebbe speaks about it, so this has to be true in that way that, and in that sense, that yes, we are doing something remarkable. And we can tell it to ourselves. Why? Because it will give us the energy and the strength to continue. Yes.
Even today, there, what we would call, well, in Hebrew we call it derech eretz, and
right.
In English we would call it more or less like common decency. No,
yes.
It's not common today at all. Really.
It's not common today. And the fact that we are able to behave in that way and to educate our children in that way, that is a huge accomplishment, for sure. That's a very good example. That's a great example.
And that's, that's why we can't really dismiss ourselves as being foolish or whatever.
So foolish in that sense that we are doing something that's not normal. What does that mean?
Not normative.
Not normative, exactly. It's the right way to do, but it's like that guy that was driving on the highway and he gets a call from his wife, and his wife tells him the police are announcing that there's a Meshuga that is driving on the opposite direction. So he said, just one Meshuga, the whole road is driving the opposite direction. So yes, sometimes we are driving the opposite direction, the other direction, and that's our mission of our day. So in that sense, we are a bit Meshuga, even though we are, yes, Am Yisrael, we are very few, and even within Am Yisrael, unfortunately, there are very few that are continuing the ways of the Torah. So that's a bit just about the shtus, about the Atzei Shittim. How do we say Atzei Shittim in English? The trees?
Sure.
No, the trees.
Eucalyptus?
No, not the eucalyptus. The other one.
Acacia.
Acacia. Okay.
But only one more thing.
Yes.
The hostages that were rescued the other day,
Baruch Hashem.
they are making tshuva.
Right. That was a story in the base Chabad in 5 towns. And it's a typical, I know that the story is real because I see it all the time. So you tell a person, okay, let's mitchazet. Let's strengthen our belief. And a lot of people want to do that, by the way. So, okay, so come put out fitting. I'm going to start next week. That's what they
How do you
always
say eucalyptus in Hebrew?
Eucalyptus. That's the same. Sorry?
The Chumash, no.
No, so in the Chumash, it's not one of the trees that are mentioned in the Chumash. The Atzei Shittim, that is mentioned in the Chumash. So, what is the story of the Atzei Shittim? So the question that is asked in the Midrash is, how did they have Atzei Shittim in the middle of the desert? How did they have these trees?
Yaakov.
Amar, who says this? Pirash Rabbi Tanchuma. Rabbi Tanchuma says, where did they get these trees from? Yaakov Avinu Tzofa Baruach HaKodesh. She'asid in Israel livnes Mishkan Bamidbar. Vehevi Arozim LeMitzrayim Venetom Etziva Labonav Litla Mimoyim Kshiyotzu LeMitzrayim. Yaakov Avinu saw with his Ruach HaKodesh that Am Yisrael are going to be rescued from Egypt like the hostages, and they're going to be in the desert, and in the desert they're going to have a special command to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle. So he said to his children, I'm planting now Atzei Shittim in Mitzrayim, and don't forget, when you leave Mitzrayim, take them out with you because you will need them. They will come to good use. So what this means is basically that it was quite a hassle. It was quite an investment also for Yaakov to plant Atzei Shittim and to make sure that his children remember that and that it goes to the next generation and that they take it and schlep it out with them. Not only that they have the family to schlep out, but they have other things to schlep out as well, including Atzei Shittim. And here is the question. Why? Why did he do it in such a way? It doesn't say that he told them store gold, keep gold for the Mishkan, or the Yeriot, which were also part of the Mishkan, which is the leather that was used also for the tabernacle. That is also not something that he told them to keep, to say, or to bring out. And why? It's because that where Am Yisrael, they basically bought a lot of things from merchants that knew that there's a nation that's traveling in the desert, and they don't have much. They eat only manna all the time. They have a fortune of money, and they are willing perhaps to buy goods. So the Midrash tells us that in many, many cases, there were Sacharim merchants that went to the Jews in the desert and offered them goods to buy. So couldn't you purchase wood in that way? And not only that,
Couldn't they buy also food from them?
probably they did.
So what did they complain?
That's one of the questions of Am Yisrael. Why did they complain? If someone individually wanted meat, now I'm not sure that there was enough merchants to give meat to all of Am Yisrael. But if for an individual, he wanted meat, he could go to one of those tagarim, one of those merchants and purchase meat. So there was a business that was done during those 40 years.
Well, meat they had.
And they had meat also. So that's what was just a complaint for the sake of a complaint. That was the problem about the request. So this is the question. Why did Yaakov want to plant those trees? It's interesting. There is also special colors that were used for the Mishkan. It says Techeles, Argaman, and what is Techeles? Techeles, until this very day, they're looking for that. That's that type of, exactly, that's the blood of the Chilazon, and the color is green. That's what Rashi says. What does green mean today? Not sure if it's turquoise or maybe the blue or a certain. So that's what we're not sure. By the way, what exactly the Techeles is. You might see some people that when they wear their tzitzis, so they've got one string is made out of Techeles, out of this blue color. So that is, not everyone agrees that we found the exact Techeles, so that's why not everyone goes with it. And what is Argaman? Argaman is also to wool that is colored in a certain color. The color is called argaman, some kind of red or purple. It's between red and purple, somewhere there. Like the color of wine. So also over there was a specific, there's certain opinions that say that there were certain animals that they made out of those animals, they made those colors. Where did they get those animals from? They purchased them. They bought them. They told the merchants, get from me this and this worm. That's what I'm looking for. Or this chilazon. Right? So, in other words, we were not lacking goods during the time of the desert. Sometimes you think about it, and you think about it. I remember I first thought about it during the war with Ukraine and Russia. Right? So you think that the whole country is shut down, is locked down. So there are certain areas that there's war, but other areas, they live a normal life. They live a regular life. So yes, you might not get everything, but life continues and business continues, and they're still shipping goods in, and they're still selling them, etc., etc. And unfortunately, now we experience this over here in Israel. So you think that someone from overseas might think that the whole country is closed down while the country is functioning pretty well. Yes, there are certain areas that are war zones, so for them, they don't live in their houses, and probably everything is closed down.
One dead in Sfat.
Sorry?
One dead in Sfat today, and four blessed.
That was because of a missile in Tzfas. Wow, I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I thought just Kiryat Shmona.
No, Sfat this morning.
Wow.
What happened?
What happened?
We went in.
They sent a missile.
Besides,
Oh,
direct from Lebanon.
But you're right, you can walk around Jerusalem and wonder where this war is, right?
Just like in Gaza. Gaza's a beautiful city, and they showed you all the destruction.
Right. That's what they said. By the way, that's what they say they do to all there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of organizations that bring tourists from European countries mainly, and they show them the West Bank. When they show them the West Bank, they show them only like the certain parts that don't look good. And yeah, and it's for pure Jew hatred. And unfortunately, a lot of people buy into it because they don't go separately. There are a few people that they self-investigated, and they went and they saw how Hebron really looks, and you can see the beautiful cars that they drive, and a lot of them live a very comfortable life. So yeah, so back to our story, back to the story of the parasha. Question is, why did Am Yisrael need to, or why did Yaakov Avinu plant? By the way, it was 200 years before they left Egypt. 200 years before he plants those trees, they needed to go. That's right. But again, if we speak about just using them for the Mishkan, so just buy them on the way. That's it. So maybe the question is not such a strong question, but the answer is very, very powerful and very, very strong. And we'll see that in a moment. Yes.
everything in the Mishkan had to be holy. At least
Okay.
that's at least one.
So that's a good question. So we see that, for example, the gold that was used for the Mishkan, that came from the Egyptians. We did not have gold.
No, but we brought it with us.
But we took it from the Egyptians. So imagine the Egyptians used that gold for anything that they wanted before, and we took that and we used it. So things that are used for avodah zarah, we are not allowed to use. That's right. But anything else, it's we can use it. And not only that, but we utilize it and elevate it to kedusha. We bring it to a holier level. So you're right that things have to be holy, but they don't have to start off holy. We could make them holy.
We didn't start off holy either.
And that's the point. And Rami Oved Avi, that's what we remind ourselves, that we weren't always believers in one God, and we did not always know about Hashem. And today we can even thank Hashem for many more things. And this is what we say, Dayenu. We say Dayenu for all the levels and all the paths that Hashem took us through, and we thank Him for each and every level, for each and every stage in life. So that is, so this is the question we are facing, and I want to tell you the answer. I want to tell you the answer because it's a powerful message. Amar Rabbi Tanchuma. Let's take a look at the name of the rabbi that said this story about Yaakov. His name is Tanchuma. What does the word Tanchuma mean? Nechama.
Nachamu.
Nachamu Am. Nachamu is comfort. So Rabbi Tanchuma, the person that is called by the name that comforts Am Yisrael, is teaching us the message that comforted the Jewish people in Mitzrayim in Egypt. What happened in Mitzrayim in Egypt is that, imagine, think about the fact that the Jews went through such a terrible time. They were enslaved, and they were not only enslaved, but they did certain labors that were not fitted to them, as the Midrash says, and the Egyptians were very, very cruel to them. But there was one thing that comforted them. When they walked in the streets or when they walked in the fields and they saw those atzei shittim, those trees, they said, we will be redeemed one day. One day we will be out of here, we will be rescued, and we would go to the desert and we will build a Mishkan, we will build a tabernacle. And that is the most important thing to a person in prison. You hear about the hostages that were released. And that's how you know that the Arabs, and I'm not saying the Hamas, but it's all the Arabs there in Gaza, are so bad, is because that they are putting the psychological pressure on the hostages as well. And they're telling them, you're never going to be released. Everyone in Israel has forgotten about you, and you are not remembered. They don't care. They're back to work. And that is why, yes, it is important to remember the hostages. It's not only about bringing a deal right here and right now and releasing all the terrorists in exchange, but it's about the fact that we remember and we care about them, and they know it. And a lot of them do get the message, if it's through the radio that they hear or through the TV that they can watch. The fact that there is some kind of care, that we remember them, and that we and that they know, therefore, that there is going to be a redemption. In one way or another, another, they are going to be out. And this is something that Yaakov Avinu teaches us, and out of care to his children, to his descendants. Yaakov Avinu says, don't buy on the route, on the way in the desert from merchants. Don't buy from them wood. Don't buy from them trees. I want a living sign that you will notice every single day when you wake up in the morning, that you will be rescued from here one day. And that is why he planted those trees. And probably it wasn't only him that planted the trees. Probably that was like the Jewish symbol then to the fact that there's going to be a redemption. And we need that. We need that feeling. One of the things about exile, and this is perhaps the biggest challenge that we are facing also today, is that we don't always see signs. And I want to share with you a special sign that Rabbi Shmuel Eliyahu pointed out, and this is based on the Zohar. Who has heard of, there are two types of rainbows? Have you heard of the two different types of rainbows? It's very interesting. We know the common rainbow. What is the common rainbow?
7 colors.
7 colors, right? That's what we usually come across. And we have a special bracha that is brought in the Siddur. We're not supposed to look for the rainbow. We're not supposed to look at the rainbow. But if you notice the rainbow, you've got to say that bracha. And what is that bracha? That Hashem remembers his covenant. Zocher HaBrit. Exactly, Zocher HaBrit. Hashem remembers the covenant, that promise that he made to Noach. And what was that promise? That he will never, ever bring a flood to the entire world again. And that rainbow is that Hashem is telling us he wants to bring a flood, because he's upset for one reason or another at our behavior. And nevertheless, he is stopping himself from actually bringing the flood. So that rainbow, is that a good sign or is that a bad sign? That's a bad sign, of course, right? There's another type of a rainbow that was spotted in the Golan Heights last week. Sorry?
lines of feminine lines.
because so that's it. It's a sign that Hashem basically wants to bring a flood, but he's not allowed to because of the covenant, because of the promise. But he wants to. That's the idea. So there was a different type of rainbow that was spotted with bright colors. So it was, by the way, it's formed out of mist and out of arafel. How do we say arafel?
Fog.
Fog, right? So that's how it's formed. It's hard to notice it. It's not always noticeable.
No.
And what happened is that someone basically, I think it was in the Golan Heights up north, someone took a picture, and you can see clearly that there is a shape of a rainbow that looks similar to the mist and to the fog, but that's definitely, it's got bright colors. And the Zohar speaks about this. And the Zohar says that there's a sign that Mashiach will come when there will be such a rainbow. A rainbow, all the rainbows are rainbows of colors that are different colors, gvanim me'irim, and all kinds of colors. And this is colors, the Zohar says, it's the colors of a kala, of a bride on the day of her chuppah, which is, of course, the white colors. So that is a good sign. Now, it's important to know about the signs that we take them and we accept them. They strengthen us, they give us courage, and they bring more awareness to the coming of Mashiach. But again, we've got to take it in the right way, understanding that at the end of the day, it's up to Hashem, and it's also up to our avodah, our request, and our demand that Mashiach actually should come. But we cannot go to sleep now and say, well, we saw this type of a rainbow, so everything is good. That's how we should approach all the signs of the coming of Mashiach. So it's not a guarantee that it's 100% going to happen, and therefore we can rest aside. No, we've got to make sure that it's mamish, something that still requires our personal avodas Hashem.
Well, what's the second type of rainbow, that it comes through mist rather than up in the clouds? That's the difference?
So this is, it doesn't say this in the Zohar, but this is the way that science speaks about it. It's created, it's formed out of mist and out of fog, and not as a reflection of the sun on the clouds, I think. That's a difference. It's not from the clouds, it's from the fog. It's something that I think it's worthwhile to look up on the internet, on Google, and to see exactly what the difference is. But what the Zohar says is that there are two different types of rainbows. One is colorful, and the other one is bright. And bright, he doesn't only say bright, but he says bright like a bride, like a color on the day of her chuppah.
And now these rainbows are a sign of transgenderism.
Yeah, right. Right. And not only that, but there is another point that the Rabbi speaks about, and the Rabbi says, where did Yaakov Avinu get those trees from? Yaakov Avinu did not he didn't buy those trees in Egypt and planted them in Egypt, saying that you will go to the Midbar, to the desert, and you will build your Mishkan. He didn't say it in that way. He brought them initially from Eretz Yisrael. And that is even more of a sign that the redemption is on the way. Because it's not only, you will need these one day. It's far. But to bring Eretz Yisrael here, and by the way, we do it with the Esrogim. A lot of people, when they bench on an Esrog, so what they have in mind, what they say is that, or when they purchase the Esrog, they look specifically for an Esrog that is from Eretz Yisrael.
No.
In Chabad,
You use Calabria.
oh, from Italy. In Chabad, we use specifically from Italy, from Calabria. Why? Because that's that in Italy it's blessed with it's a fruitful land. It's a fruitful land initially, but the esrog is not only because it's fruitful, but they say that is guarantee that it is 100% an esrog. Because today what can happen is that people breed together the esrog with a lemon and things like that, so it's stronger or something like that. But but the Calabrian ones are pure 100% esrogim, and that's the Masoros that we have. It's not only Chabad. The Chasam Sofer also writes about it. Satmar also get it. That's interesting. So yes, definitely, this is something very special. That and by the way, you can recognize a Calabrian esrog by looking at it. The upper part is a bit bigger. When we'll come to Sukkot time, maybe we'll have a share about the different esrogim, and we can bring also examples. So this is Rabbi Tanchuma. Rabbi Tanchuma is here to comfort us and to tell us that yes, there will be a time that we won't be under the control of the Egyptians anymore, and Hashem will take us out of Egypt, out of Mitzrayim, straight to Eretz Yisrael, and that's why they slept with them, these Atzei Shittim. There is another idea also in our parsha that I want to speak about. Okay, so the second part of our parsha actually the last, so what is the sign in the times of the Galut? The signs that we have when we are in exile. What are our signs? So we spoke about the rainbow, that's one sign.
What, no basin?
Sorry?
No basin? No.
So that's a sign of darkness. So sometimes you're right, and there are also other signs that are brought in two Gemaras, also in Masechta Sanhedrin, also in Masechta Saita, that these will be the signs that Mashiach will come. And one of them is that, like you mentioned at the beginning, that the young generation will be very disrespectful. Chutz payasta. Or it says that fish will cost more than meat. So today I think at least certain fish cost more than meat. So those are all, we can call them negative signs. Those are signs that the situation is so bad and so terrible that Mashiach just has to come. It can't be worse than what's happening now around us. And yes, that is true. That is a sign. But again, these are negative signs. What are the positive signs today?
All the construction cranes everywhere.
So that's a good point. That we see the rebuilding, we see the beginning of the kibbutz galuyot of Am Yisrael. What about 100 years ago? Were there signs also then? The Jews were deep, deep in Poland, in America, in Russia, in Ukraine. It seemed like there was nothing that was connected to the Geula, to the redemption.
But that's why it didn't come.
But what about, there should be signs like Yaakov Avinu, when he planted those trees. So it was way before they were rescued, 200 years before. But there was already a living sign that, yes, the redemption will be coming. In other words, we are looking for some truth that we can live to. Something connected to godliness that does not have the covering of exile. Where can we find it? So we say this every Shabbat, on Leil Shabbat, Friday night. We said also Shabbos day.
The dancing trees.
Sorry?
The dancing trees.
So perhaps it's connected also to the dancing trees. We say Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. We say Tzadik Katamar Yifra. A Tzadik is like a Tamar. Ke'erez Balevanon Yisgeh. Like the Arazim, which is also the Atzei Shittim, which is basically the Arazim, which is what was the word in English again?
Acacia.
Acacia. So those trees are compared to tzaddikim. And throughout the generations, the tzaddik was always that source of stability for Am Yisrael. That was always the sign that, yes, there will be a redemption. And it says that by a tzaddik, not always tzaddik, sometimes in his rooms, his chambers, his home, it was like a Kodesh Kodashim. There was a smell of Gan Eden. What does that mean? This is the way that was described. Some sense of truth that people could feel.
We had many more in than 1800 than now.
So, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Then there was a lot of these tzaddikim that we could connect to, that we could relate to. Because what is exile? Exile is that the matzav is so hard. Truth is covered. There's no truth. There's no godliness in the world. Everything is so hard, so difficult. You go to a tzaddik, and when you go to the tzaddik, things become much more simple. There is truth that the tzaddik reflects. And the tzaddik is one that is always connected to Hashem. So for him, it's like there is no real exile. Of course, there's exile, but it's a much lower level.
But you said that the sign that Mashiach is coming, there will be many more tzaddikim.
No,
The lack of tzaddikim
no.
or the presence of tzaddikim?
The present, even of just one tzaddik, shows
One.
that even one, it shows that there is truth. So therefore, yes, Hashem didn't leave us totally, right? One of the things that the Christians claim is that Hashem left the Jews at a certain point. He left them totally. And it's not only a question that they claim. The Jews in Egypt could have felt the same thing, that perhaps God has left us. Yaakov passed away, all the Shvatim passed away, Yosef passed away, and that's it. We need a living sign that Hashem is still with us. And for them, the Jews in Egypt, for them the living sign was those trees, and for us today the living sign is a tzaddik. Because a tzaddik has truth to him. So if he has truth to him, we know that Hashem's truth has never disappeared and is still with us. And that's why, yes, even though things, and where did the Christians come from? They came from a point where they said, look how in a terrible state you are. And we were in a terrible state. Also with the pogroms, but not only the pogroms, the just the physical and material situation of the Jews. The fact that they had to wander from one place to another, the fact that they were not allowed to trade and they were not allowed to do all types of businesses. That was a big challenge. By the way, in Rome, in Italy, there was a time that they were not allowed to eat dairy. Right? They were not allowed to enjoy life like anyone else. And that was part of what the Christians enforced on the Jews to show that God left them. The tzaddik shows that Hashem never left us.
And
Yes.
well, one of the signs is that there's a very big division between the evil and the good. And in fact, the evil nations have made evil into laws.
Right.
Things like they can tell the good people what to do.
Right.
And
So that's a bad sign. That's one of the negative
a lot of
signs.
these are negative signs, but
We're
when you
looking
find
for
truth, you find really good. And it's really good.
exactly, and that is why we see that
You need to search for
the importance of connecting to a tzaddik and connecting to the rabbi throughout generations. It was always like that. And where does it start? It starts off with the Torah itself telling us that we follow our rabbis forever. And Shmuel b'Doira, Kamosher b'Doira, which means that Shmuel, the prophet Shmuel in his generation, he has the equivalent to Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation. And Mordechai Tzaddik, that we are going to speak about soon in Purim, he is also, for his generation, on the same level as Moshe Rabbeinu in his generation. So this is something that's really important for us to remember, that truly, when we reach a time that we feel that it's too hard, we've got to connect ourselves to truth. And where do we find this truth? We find the truth by a tzaddik, by a Rebbe. That's something that everyone that met the Rebbe, and that you see even the pictures of people when they when the Rebbe was davening, you see, when the Rebbe got an aliyah, you see the way people looked at the Rebbe. And I remember in yeshiva, they always spoke to us about the idea that when they looked at the Rebbe, even in mundane activities, they saw truth. What does that mean? They saw a person that does something with a full heart, that is connected to what he does. You know, when we daven, so sometimes, yes, with that when the Rebbe was happy, you saw that he's really happy. You know, the one thing that you can appreciate today with people is being authentic. Someone that's authentic 100% in what he does. Someone that does things without faking it. And today, it's very, very rare. Today, part of the game is that people act and behave in a certain way outside, and they do one face, the emojis and connect. Okay, so now I'm laughing. So they pretend they're not really laughing, right? So they greet you. What do they say? Like the flight attendee, right? So would you like coffee? And there's a wide smile on the face. And a second after that, there's no smile at all. So that's an example for an extreme case. But even between us, how authentic are we between our friends? Right? How honest are we? How fully grounded and connected are we? Even between close friends or spouses, right? Are we fully grounded and authentic with them? Are we connected to this moment, at this time? Yeah, so that's a very good example. So with the Rebbe, one of the things that we can say to try and describe, where do we see this emes? Where do we see this emes? You see the emes in the fact that he does things and he's fully over there. Everyone that went for private audience to the Rebbe describes one thing. That it was 2 a.m, but the Rebbe was with you as if no one else came before and no one else is going to enter the room after. And that is something that it's a human quality, by the way, that I know a few people that have that ability. There's one rabbi here in Yerushalayim. Every time I speak to him, it's as if he has all the time in the world. And I know that he's busy. He's not only a rabbi that teaches Torah, but he's a rabbi that he runs an organization as well. So when he runs an organization, what he does is pretty busy guy. Whenever I speak to him, sometimes he even drags the conversation out. And I know that it's not because he's interested in the conversation, but just he wants to give me not only the feeling, but he really believes in being with a person at that moment. That is the biggest thing that we can do. If you can pay attention, that's connection. That's connecting to people, right? So the Rebbe had it on a very high level, but many other tzaddikim also have it. Other rabbis that you'll go see, you can see how they are connected to their learning. Nothing else interests them. They don't have a fancy house. They sit on a simple chair and they're learning Torah all day. And they don't care about what other people think of them. That is being authentic. That is emes, and that is the atzei shittim. Those are the signs that we carry and take with us, that we know that there is hope, there is truth in the world. So maybe I'm not holding on that level, but the fact that I know that there is someone that is holding on that level, so it's a different game. I know that there is truth. I can guarantee that there is truth. How many people today can guarantee that truth exists in the world? With all the laws that you are describing, and with the politics, and with the money, and with the businesses, and with the self-interests, etc., etc. And unfortunately, we are playing in that game as well. We try to do it according to the halakha in the best way possible. But the halakha does not require to be authentic 100%. So where do we get our strength from? From the emes. We know that there is such a real existence. That became half a shir and half a fabregen towards the end. So, l'chaim, we don't have time actually for the second part of the shir that I plan to say, but since the story of the Mishkan goes on to the next parsha and the parsha after that as well, so we Bezrat Hashem will speak about it. Generally speaking, the question is, why do we need a place, 4 walls in Yerushalayim that Hashem rests specifically over there? What's wrong with davening in Chutz La'aretz or davening in my home? Why do we need to face Yerushalayim? That's the question for Bezrat Hashem, one of the next shiurim. Thank you very, very much, Yashar Koach, and the next year, 11 o'clock.